Welcome to ThroughThe Trauma Podcast. My name is Amber Larkins, published photographer, storytelling expert, visual artist, entrepreneur, speaker, and coach. This podcast was born from one question: how do I get inspiring stories of triumph out to the people who need to hear them the most? Come with me, enter my world, where lives are getting changed, heroes are getting developed, and greatness is being achieved. Hello and welcome to another episode of ThroughThe Trauma Podcast. I'm Amber Larkins, your host, and today I have with me Mr. Charles Clay. I'm so thankful that he's here today because he is an inner peace coach and specializes in neurokinetic pain relief. He is also the creator of Freedom from Pain and Inner Peace, the inner peace process of self-healing and trauma. He's known for bringing dreams to life. So Charles, thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for that kind introduction.
So I know there's so much more to you that we're going to learn a little bit more about today, but is there anything that you would really like to add? I know that you could probably explain it way better than me, what you do.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that the inner peace is our natural state, and we just kind of detour far from that often, and then we get to recognize programs and old conditioning patterns and the fear state that kind of takes us out of our alignment of heart-centered space of what's in the greatest good, highest good for all. And so a lot of my work is just helping people come back into that centered space, and making choices from there is much different than choices from a fight or flight state of fear, anxiety, overwhelm. And of course, the irony is that whatever we're experiencing, whether it's anxiety or fears or trauma, challenges that arise, there's always lessons and blessings to gain from those experiences. And so the majority of my work is just helping people find those lessons as to how this is happening for you. And I find that that's a pretty accelerated path for healing and through challenges and pain and suffering, because then it oftentimes doesn't have to keep repeating in our lives, which can be really frustrating. And so, yeah, I get, people that come to me with such things as back pain or dealing with anxiety and can't seem to get out of their head and the inner chatter. And, even people that are dealing with the classic abandonment wound and generational wounds that point to some of the deeper trauma that people experience. And so we get to do some alchemy work together and move energy. And it's really a blessing to share this work, because on the other side of it, it's incredible to witness dreams come true in a pretty rapid pace, from abundance in people's lives, going from scarcity to, wealth, going from, challenging relationships where there's just like common patterns and turmoil and triggers that keep showing up and keep people from fully connecting on a deeper level of intimacy to, even health and these sensory suits that we get to enjoy for such a short time, helping people understand the messages that our bodies are telling us is very rewarding, because when we honor that, then we can come back to our natural state of inner peace, alignment, and get to work on our highest excitement and joy in our dharma.
So tell me a little bit about how you got into this line of work.
Yeah, I learned the hard way to get to teach an easier way, essentially. It kind of started with a pretty powerful initiation with physical pain that put me on my trajectory with purpose. And so I graduated from Washington State University with my degree in kinesiology. And I've always had this fascination for these sensory suits, the human body and our potential and understanding the messages and signals from our body. And so that's been a really cool line of work and study. And And then out of college, I moved to California, lived the beach life, and became a trainer and health coach. And for a while, I was taking on like 10 clients a day and running on coffee and going out on the weekends and overindulging and avoiding a lot of some common denominator emotions that I repressed early on, and kind of masking that with addictions and vices, and it's all part of the human experience. And so I found myself in Mammoth Mountain back in 2008 with two of my buddies. And this day in particular was profound. It was a full-on blizzard. Like, we're up there snowboarding, and it was snow coming every which way. You could barely see the blur of a tree like 10 feet in front of you. And we were at the top of the mountain, and the lifts were even stopped because it was so dangerous up there. But we looked at each other, we're like, hey, let's charge. It's only one way down. So we're just flying through this white abyss, kind of like snowboarding through cloud nine. And it was a lot of fun until about halfway down the mountain, I went off a jump that I didn't know was there. And it felt like I just went off a cliff. And so I'm in, just falling in this, I don't know which way is up or down. And so I tensed up, and when I hit, it felt like a lightning bolt just hit me in the low back. It was this excruciating pain, probably like a level 11 on a 10 scale of pain. And I'm yelling to my friends, hoping that they can hear me. They're already ahead of me. They can't hear through the muffled snow. I look at my phone. My phone's dead. It's out of battery. So I'm sitting here in the middle of the mountain. I can't even stand up straight because I'm in so much pain. And it's in those moments, that you channel and find like another gear, and kind of channeled my inner Spartan warrior, and just was able to click my board off and actually sit on my board and slide down for a while. And then I'd keel over, breathe into the pain, and did this long enough that I eventually made it down the mountain. And then I had to see, doctors and specialists, and I'm getting MRIs and CAT scans, and they're all telling me the same thing. Multiple opinions. These doctors were saying, your back's in bad shape, and you're going to need surgery, or you'll never move the same again. So to hear that news was pretty devastating for me, that appreciates, these human bodies so much, that even in a fight or flight state, I was able to access my intuition and choose a different path. So I opted out of going under the knife, and that meant, my beginning of my self-healing journey. And I remember being in my apartment in San Diego at the time. I could barely crawl to the bathroom. I was in so much pain, and I'm like, what am I going to do now? And it was almost like forcing me to sit with all the emotions that I hadn't fully processed. Let me really feel into the depths of fear, if I was ever going to move the same again. Shame, I could barely even stand up straight, let alone do anything productive, get to work. And also some grief that I hadn't processed from loss earlier in my life. And so I let those tears fall and went deeper into the depths of those feelings than I ever had before. And I found gold there. It's like after that feeling you get after a good cry, there's clarity there. And so I set an intention to receiving all answers to healing naturally while I dropped into a meditation. And literally while in that meditation, a friend I hadn't talked to in 2 years sent me a text right then and said, hey, I heard your back's in bad shape. Check out NKT, neurokinetic therapy, the work of David Weinstock. So this took me down a pretty exciting rabbit hole to discover this work. And I was, I got him on the phone, and I was like, man, I'm in San Diego. I know you're in the Bay Area, but I could really use your help. I'm in a lot of pain. I feel like I've been studying what you're doing, and I feel like it might help. And so he set me up with his top student in San Diego at the time, named Christina. And I went and got my first session of NKT. And so I walked in looking like Shakira stuck in a mid-hip dance move, like my upper body's over to the right, left, the hips are over to the left. And that was representative of how out of alignment I was with my purpose at that time. So she got me on the table. she's testing different muscle groups. She's having me try to push down with my foot to test the glutes, and nothing's working. And I was like, what do you mean my glutes aren't firing? That's weird. I have huge glutes. She's like, yep, all form, no function. She had a good sense of humor. And so she had me clench my jaw and then retested the glutes. And all of a sudden they were online temporarily. So my body had just showed us that the neurological traffic jam was in my jaw, overcompensating for the work of the glutes, my butt muscles. So it's fascinating, just like this huge epiphany to me as she's putting these rubber gloves on. And she's like, I know we just met, but I'm going to have to go in your mouth. And she starts, releasing my jaw. And man, it was painful, but there was this huge release. And it felt like it opened up these pathways again. And all of a sudden, tested the glutes again. And now these muscles are firing. And we did that for a couple other compensation patterns I found. And I got off the table and I was standing up straight and I was in alignment again. And I wanted to just dance. I gave her a big hug and I said, I'm going to come see you every week. I want to learn this. And I went on to get in touch with David Weinstock and took all of his courses live, studied under him, and became a neurokinetic therapist. And that set me on my path to helping a lot of other people have options to, healing, self-healing tools and, other alternatives to going under the knife. There's a time and a place for that, but it's just nice to know that, you can try some other things first. And so that evolved. I saw a lot of people with back pain, shoulder injuries, chronic pain that was showing up, and even some so-called incurable diseases that I started seeing a wide variety of patients. And so I started noticing a lot of common denominators. We would address the physiology and get these muscles turned back on that were offline. They'd feel great leaving, and for a couple weeks or a month, they'd feel good, but then things would show up again. And so there were some more things to address. And a lot of times people don't connect the dots with emotions, energy in motion that wants to move through us. When we resist that, it becomes issues in our tissues and shows up as pain, check engine light. And so this helped me really improve my relationship with pain, just seeing it for that, just like our cars, when your check engine light goes off, it's like, hey, I should probably make a change and get this serviced, and so to avoid a major breakdown. And our bodies are like that, but much more intelligent. But we tend to not be as diligent. We've been taught, oh, just take a pill, numb it out, grab a drink, stuff it, or watch Netflix, escape from the pain. And instead, there's a lot of value in going into it and understanding these messages. And so for me, it helped me come back into alignment and help me address and deep dive into the emotional components related to pain. And that's when I, developed the inner peace process. And in that, we also address the metaphysics. And this is really valuable because, women like Louise Hay left a gold mine of resources through metaphysics, that she was helping people heal themselves from AIDS and cancer back when in the 80s, when that was so-called incurable, just by using these metaphysics, these tools. And so I find it's very valuable where pain or discomfort showing up in the body is giving you clues. So when we can understand those messages, then we can make the necessary changes, shifts in our lifestyle, and come back into alignment and gain some of those lessons from it. And then it doesn't need to keep showing up over and over. So one of my gifts is being able to take something that's very complex and a number of different tools and putting them into one single method that's very effective, efficient, and can really go, a deep dive under the hood to see how this is all happening for us. And what's great about, kind of sets my work apart is that I also, I guide people through experiential learning, and whether it's one-on-one work or group training, and then they get the take-home version of it. So now they're gifted with a step-by-step process that they can take anytime they're feeling triggered, right? Like the same anger that shows up, or grief that's unresolved, or sadness, frustration, these things, these common denominator emotions that keep showing up are like energy that wants to be resolved within us. It wants to move through us. And when we resist that, it just persists and keeps showing up. So instead of resorting to the quick fix and, addictions, vices, escape tactics, you could get out your journal or do a voice note and take this step-by-step process to really go to the source of, where this began in your life and get to make peace with that and understand how it was all happening for you. So there's a reparenting process that I gift people once they experience it. So now they're armed with some pretty powerful self-healing tools that instead of, when it comes to trauma, it's like we either deal with it, face it, resolve it, or we pass it on to the next generation. And, I have two girls and another baby boy on the way. So they're my greatest inspiration. I still continue to take my own medicine. And it's really exciting because you learn something new about yourself every time you go through this process. And it's just a beautiful way to let your body finally metabolize the emotions that were trapped and also get to identify where some of the limiting beliefs were created. Because when we deal with events that happen in our life, this is usually when we're making the decision about ourselves that, mom left, so I must not be good enough, or I must not be worthy of love, or, these stories that keep perpetuating and ruminate in our subconscious will keep showing up in our lives until we address them. And this is just a great, very effective process for addressing that and resolving it from the source, gaining the lessons from it. And then you watch as your life shifts. It's like, wow, shift happens. And then I combine that with a visioneering process that helps people get super clear on their North Star, like why they came here as a soul in human form, what they came to share, their God-given gifts, their messages on their heart. These are things that lead to the path of long-term fulfillment versus like the short-term gratification. So,
And this is something you've been doing this for a while.
Over a decade. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And can you talk a little bit about, like, you've seen people transform through this process, and you've used these same healing tools for your own transformation. Can you talk a little bit about, like, the differences that you see in people as they go through this process, that what that experience is like? Do all people transform kind of at the same level, or what does it require of them to transform, I guess, at the highest efficiency and effectiveness going through a process like this?
Yeah, everybody's journey is a little different. And, I get a lot of people that are kind of dealing with relationship issues. So, an example would be, a client that their mom left when they were 4 and, from divorce, right? And then they remember it vividly and they have this deep abandonment wound that was created then. And these stories that go along with it of like a 4-year-old trying to process those emotions makes decisions about themselves that, I must not be worthy of love, or the ones I love are going to leave me, right? And so this keeps perpetuating, and then they might fall in love later in life and come to find out that their lover ends up leaving, right? So once this starts happening over and over again, then it can become a very painful pattern. And so we get to guide them through the inner peace process, and they get to reparent, that 4-year-old, going back to the place within them that needs the most love, support, and safety, providing that and getting to be there for that version of them more so than maybe their parents were then. And this allows for, an emotional release often, as well as opportunity to change the story. It's like, well, getting to share, maybe that's not true anymore, that I'm not worthy of love, and then helping people recognize, they come to terms that, like, we are the creators of our reality. So somehow I'm creating some of this, and then we get to take responsibility for that. So they start to see, wow, here's the ways that I was blind to how I was subconsciously actually pushing that relationship away, right? And taking responsibility for that. And then by doing this work and guiding them through the inner peace process, it's like, before you know it, um, they're attracting their soulmate, and it's like they fall in love and then are happily married. Dreams are coming true, kids, house, like what they really ultimately wanted, um, after doing this inner work. And then there's always more layers to the onion. So, new stuff will come up, new challenges, but um, there's something to be said for just having a confidence in knowing that you are your own greatest healer. Nobody knows your soul, your mind, your body like you. And so, having some tools to navigate that is has been profound to witness, some of the results. So I've had the honor of helping a lot of people call in their soulmates, as well as make some shifts in their business and their experience with money and abundance, wealth, prosperity flows in after releasing some of those negative subconscious beliefs around money. Some people don't even recognize that, like, yeah, still holding this belief that like money's the root of all evil, or that, it's just pompous pricks that have all this money and, they're just greedy, right? If that's running, and then, you're putting all this output in this work,
Yeah.
but not allowing yourself to fully receive it because this subconscious belief is running, then there's a whole stream of opportunities and abundance that want to flow to you. We just get to pull out the 3D debris in the way. And I call it 3D debris because it's the heavy, the heaviness, the trapped emotions, the old limiting beliefs that just want to be resolved. That's why they get highlighted every time we get triggered.
Mm-hmm. So what is the experience like? You have you help with both the mental and the physical. So the mind and the mindset, and also the physical ways that our body holds on to trauma or to pain caused by trauma a lot of times. What's the difference that you see there? Do you start with one before you attack the other, or is this kind of they work together simultaneously when you're working with a client?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it varies based on where they're at in their journey. A lot of times people can really relate to the physical, like, hey, pain showing up here, it keeps reoccurring. It's, this issue. And so it might be like they're feeling resistance in their solar plexus and their low backs showing up with lots of pain. And then as we address the metaphysics, then we start to look at, oh, wow, our back represents our support in life. So where are the ways that you're not feeling supported, right? And then taking a deeper look, you can fine tune it all the way to the vertebrae, like the sacrum. If that's where the pain's showing up, that's like, where are we giving our power away, right? Like in arguments or connections, or just feeling powerless. And so these are all hints and clues that we can gain kind of the lessons and blessings from. And so they might come to me with pain, and we'll get to address that and go into it instead of avoiding it and letting it just perpetuate. And then they get to improve their relationship with pain. And then it's like we get to pay attention to the little feathers, the smaller signals, and make the adjustments then, instead of waiting till, the equivalent of like getting hit in the head with a brick or a Mack truck like I had to experience in order to really make those shifts. So it becomes very useful, and it's really an exciting journey of self-discovery as well, to know thyself, and so, but some people will be dealing with like deep grief and, come to me, experiencing a lot of loss that they don't feel like they've completely processed yet. And then it's showing up in their relationships, and not allowing them to connect on a deeper level, or, creating avoidant attachment styles. And so, yeah, it varies depending on where people are at. But it's great because it allows them to go inward and use some new tools to discover, where the source of this is coming from, and some profound ways to resolve it and gain what they're
Mhm.
supposed to from it.
And I'm sure too that there's a lot of, like, I even think you mentioned it earlier about uncovering. So, like, if somebody comes to you for one particular pain, maybe pain in their lower back or pain in their heart or whatever, it's going to uncover other things. And so you really treat the person holistically.
Yeah,
You're treating them mind, body, soul, and then also uncovering other things that could be affecting mind, body, soul. I think one thing that people, I had this misconception until really started doing this podcast and started reading about mental health in general, but that mental and physical are two separate things, but they're totally not. They're very much coincide with each other. And there's a book, it comes up often on this podcast called "The Body Keeps the Score."
mhm.
And you familiar?
Oh yeah,
And that was probably the first time that I really come to realize that we hold so much in our bodies that come from our emotions and our mindset, how we look at things. Because emotions, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but emotions kind of are derived through mindset, through our perception of how we see things. Um, because we can talk ourselves up or down from emotions. Is is that correct?
absolutely. And yeah, you're pointing to this connection with the mind and body and how they interrelate so divinely, because we often forget that how powerful we are with our attention, because where our attention's going, our energy's flowing, right? And this is our greatest asset. So when we're getting caught up in information overload but not taking any inspired action, and then we wonder why we're stuck, you know the it's like, imagine you get really good at slowing things down and recognizing you are not your thoughts, and you actually get to choose which thoughts you're identifying with, right? So then it like changes everything when you recognize, man, there's that old thought that I used to identify with, and it would create this negative experience in my body of anxiety or overwhelm or increased heart rate, and create this uncomfortable experience when I always see it as like a practice of I'm a surfer, so it's like you paddle out past the breaker and you're on your surfboard at the most pristine sunrise, and you're just watching the waves. You're just observing from this seat of awareness, all the waves and the thoughts. There's some people that say when you meditate, just empty your mind and don't think about anything. It's like, well, then you're thinking about not thinking. Your mind's made to think, but you get to choose which thoughts you're identifying with. So when you know, some people try to stop the waves, they're going to keep coming, right? So instead, it's just being the witness of those. And when you identify with, the negative thoughts, then it's like dropping in on a brutal wave that pummels you and you feel like you're drowning. And then there's usually like five more negative waves that come, and it's hard to breathe, And so I teach a very simple but profound breathing technique that allows us to like downshift the nervous system and slow down, drop from the mind into the heart space, where you get to observe these thoughts and recognize like, oh, I can actually pull out of that one. This isn't serving me, and I can choose a better thought. And then you'll get a different experience in your body, right? So they're directly related, like you said. And I could just give a quick, simple example. Like, I recognized long ago that every time I would look in the mirror, there was this program to I would always just look for the faults. Like, look for, oh, is there a wrinkle? Am I getting gray hairs? Like, these just looking for the negative thing, when it hit me, like, I get to choose. And so, I kind of played with it and was like, I'm not going to ride those waves anymore. In fact, like, yes, I have some gray hairs, but it's a sign of sophistication. You know, it looks good on Sean Connery, right? So like I have more fun with it, and I feel like I'm getting younger because I'm choosing better thoughts. And it's a game changer when you get good at this practice, because then you're experiencing more good feeling emotions, you know, because you're choosing better thoughts. Then it's easier to find that path of highest excitement, you know, following your bliss, as Joseph Campbell would say. And, you know, Joseph Campbell stated, you know, any emotion felt all the way through is bliss. You know, it's like emotions are energy in motion, they're messengers. You know, when we try to resist something because it doesn't feel good, it just gets stuck within us, and then it'll keep getting triggered and pointed at until we allow ourselves to move through it and experience it fully. So it's exciting, you know, to get to do this work, because there's so much to gain. You know, I've personally found so much self-discovery in the depths of grief. You know, I lost my mom pretty early on at age 10. She took her own life. She battled depression, alcoholism, and it was the most devastating news I could have gotten. This woman that I love so much and had such a brilliant and bright childhood with, you know, decided to leave this planet. And so, you know, I remember sitting at her funeral shortly after with next to my brother and trying not to cry at my own mom's funeral, because I'd picked up these beliefs that, you know, hanging out with older kids, that, you know, if you're a guy, you can't show tears, it's a sign of weakness, you know, you're supposed to be strong, and all this silly stuff that, you know, repressed those emotions. And then later on, you know, I got very intimate with my anger, with grief, with and improved my relationship with those, because I learned so much about myself. And so there's just a gold mine for each individual to discover when they allow themselves to go into those depths. And now I have a beautiful relationship with my mom in spirit, and I feel very grateful that I had 10 incredible years with her, unlike some people that never get to have, you know, time with their mom or dad sometimes.
How do you recommend someone start gaining an awareness of these emotions? Because I think, and this just could be my experience, but I feel like sometimes that's the hardest part, is finding that awareness and knowing, you know, you can have thoughts. We have thoughts all day. They're constantly coming in and out of our minds. Well, if we're not consciously thinking like, hey, that is a bad thought, I shouldn't think that.
Mm-hmm.
Or, you know, if you look in the mirror and you say, oh, I'm getting old, like that's a negative thought, I shouldn't have that negative thought, let me replace that. But you have to be intentional about that.
Yep.
And I feel like sometimes starting the momentum of picking those things and knowing and awareness that I'm actually doing this is the hardest part.
Mm-hmm.
How would you recommend someone like kind of start picking up those habits? What's the easiest way in your opinion?
Yeah. You know, slowing things down, because we, you know, just like my negative program of looking for faults, it's like a Windows 2007, old, outdated, you know, software that was downloaded that just needed to be updated. And so, you know, our minds are so brilliant and work so intimately with our body that, you know, I think it's worthy of sharing about the phenomenon with the reticular activation system. You know, familiar with this? Have you heard of
I'm
the?
not.
Yeah. So this is a phenomenon that's occurring all the time. It's proven in science. There's this area in our brain that's filtering through all the, you know, millions of stimuli that's coming in every minute to what's actually important to us, right? So it's essentially like a radar, and it's called reticular activation system, because reticular meaning retina, the lens at which we see our reality through, is activated to that what's, you
Mm.
know, whatever's is important to us at that time, right? So when we're using this in to our favor, it can be very advantageous, and when we're unconscious of it, can fall into some pretty negative pitfalls. And so, you know, an example would be, a lot of people can relate to, is like the, you know, you're like, wow, look at that, cool new, SUV Tesla. Like, I want to be the only one on the road driving that cool new futuristic car, right? And as soon as you see that and have interest in it, and now it's like, whoa, I start seeing them everywhere. Like, one pulls up next to you, or you see the magazine, or, it's like now it's your reticular activation set to that. So these, you might see the same numbers, like 222 or 1111, right? Your reticular activation's been set to that. It creates meaning with you, right? So then the other end of the spectrum, the flip side of the coin, is when we wake up, we're like, man, I had a rough night's sleep. It's going to be a tough day. As soon as we even think that and identify with that thought, we've just unintentionally set our reticular activation system, our radar system, to looking for evidence of it being a tough day. And the universe will provide, right? It's like you wake up, you stub your toe, you're ungrounded, you spill your coffee, someone's stealing your parking spot, like all these things keep kind of snowball effect. And so you mentioned something about intention earlier, and this is fantastic because you can set your reticular activation with intention. And they've done scientific studies on this as well. This is some of the work of Joe Dispenza too, is, they've had groups that just focused on an intention, a crystal clear intention, and they watched their DNA on a microscopic level to see if there was any changes there. There's minimal changes. Another group that focused on an elevated state of emotion, also watching their DNA, not a ton of change there. But when they combined the two, all of a sudden they witnessed, with an elevated state of emotion, and we can get there with gratitude, and a crystal clear intention, all of a sudden the DNA started unraveling and different genes were turning on. And it was almost essentially like you're becoming more energy than matter and opening up to the quantum field of possibilities. And so there's a lot of scientific magic that can come with that, because when you intentionally focus on something you're grateful for, this can elevate your state of being. Then you combine that with a crystal clear intention, then it can shift your entire reality, because now your mind is set like a heat-seeking missile to finding what you actually are interested in, what you'd like to experience, instead of in the negative default programs. So it's a big difference. I can give a simple example. I went to, when we moved to Texas, I got to go to the closest place to hell, as some would say. You know where that is?
No.
Some would say that the DMV, right? Like the driver's license, you gotta go to this government building, wait there. Everybody's kind of like zombie mode, just waiting to get out of there. Not the funnest place. Right?
You know what's funny? I think that's a California thing, because I'm from Tennessee originally, and in California, the DMV was always like, you're exactly right. Like you described it perfect. The closest place to hell. I don't see that as much here in Tennessee as I do in California. I don't know. I'd love to know other people's thoughts on that, but
Totally.
anyway.
I figured while I'm going to the closest place to hell, as some would say, I'm going to fill up with gratitude. I have my health, my family's, thriving and vibrant. And so these things make me feel good in my body. That elevates my state of being. Then I set a crystal clear intention before I even walk in the building. And it was something as simple as, I want to have fun. If I'm, moving through hell, then I'm going to have fun, share some smiles for miles, have some laughs, and keep moving through there, So I just set my reticular activation to fun and went into the DMV, grabbed my number, sat down for a meditation, noticed the guy next to me had a knee brace on. So I asked him, what happened? You've been kicking too much butt or what? And he goes, I wish, man, young guy. He's like, ACL injury and it's taking forever to heal. And I said, have you ever tried, meditation to accelerate healing? And he's like, no. I go, man, I can share the same meditation that I used to help get answers to healing my back when I injured it. And he was like, cool. And so that sparked up another conversation with some other people. Before you know it, we were having our own little party in the DMV, and the girl that works there, they're usually a lot of fun. And it's just and
you mean that sarcastically, I know.
She calls my number and I go up there and I'm like, I'm so excited to see you. Do you know how long I've been waiting? She's like, no. I pointed at my watch. At the time I had this watch that just said now. And it didn't even tell time. She was like, "That is awesome. My husband has so many watches. He doesn't have that one yet. Girls, come see this." So it was like a domino effect of like sharing laughs with like 8 people in the DMV. Time flew by. I had a blast there. And then I was the happiest guy with my driver's license picture, and got out of there and had a good experience because I was intentional about it instead of just
Mhm.
sticking to the low vibration and frequency of those buildings. Hospitals are the same way. Definitely use, I call it G&I, gratitude and intention, before you go into hospital or the DMV, and to set your reticular activation to what you ultimately want to experience and watch how things shift. It's
Well, the beautiful thing about this as well is that not only have you just now made your experience better, but you have literally made how many other people's experience good from
yeah.
being there. I have definitely used this technique
Mhm.
in my own life. I'm probably not as good at it as you are, but I've been intentional about I'm going to go into a place that is very depressing and tried to go in with very positive attitude, like I'm not going to let anything affect me. Like I will. But I think sometimes it still can, just depending depending on the place and the people. But much less than if you didn't set those intentions ahead of time. And something else you mentioned that I wanted to point out as well. I've heard Tony Robbins say this, like the colors. He says, look around the room and try to find yellow. And you look around the room and you find all the things that are yellow. And then he says, now close your eyes and tell me all the things that was brown. And you're like,
Mhm.
I didn't look for brown. So it's amazing to me how the mind works and how powerful it truly is. And these types of things just showcase that so much clearer. That's the mind that we have, and we are so blessed to have a mind that is that powerful and capable of literally changing the trajectory of things, energy or our day or just what our experiences, our perceptions, everything. With your work, like you take people through this, so by the end of the time they've worked with you, they can say their mindset is kind of shifted.
Mhm. Absolutely.
The things that you do with pain management, like I've done a little bit, I've played around with this a little bit. I don't know that I can fully get into that depth of meditation personally. I've struggled with getting into that depth of meditation. I believe it works. Joe Dispenza is, I've looked at some of his stuff. It's way beyond, like he's way advanced compared to anything I've ever done. Even his seminars and things that I've seen has been way advanced. But I do believe that on a cellular level that we can heal ourselves in our mind. I believe our mind is that powerful. I think that sometimes people have a hard time tapping into that type of meditation. So do you have any tips for people that possibly like they're like I have a hard time meditating. I can't slow my brain down.
Yeah, absolutely. So I teach an expansion breath. I call it 4-8 expansion breath. And it's first we go through a whole process. I'll just give the cliff notes on it. Most of us breathe anteriorly, meaning in the front, right? Like your belly extends forward, your chest rises a little bit, but we can actually breathe in every direction. If you put your fingers on your rib cage or your side body, you can really feel as you breathe in deeply, you can expand your side body. And even in your back, if you put your 2 thumbs in your low back and breathe and expand, you can notice that you can experience expansion just with the power of your breath, even to your backside. When you get good at this practice, then you apply a little pranayama, which is like a tempo, right? So you're breathing in for 4 seconds, expanding in every direction as if the epicenter of your breath is in your belly, expanding like a balloon, and then exhaling for 8 seconds. So smooth, slow, relaxed exhale all the way to empty. And this has a very cooling, calming effect and can help you, regulate your nervous system and drop into a more relaxed state. So this is a great tool to use anytime you're getting hit with heavy emotion, trigger, pain, to help slow things down. And it's a tool that's been right under our nose the whole time, right? breath. And so the more you practice it, you can get to Jedi level where more of your life becomes like a meditation, and even while you're in conversation, you can be practicing this type of breath and really allow you to drop into a deeper state of presence and notice what's showing up. Right. And then from there, I always offer, I think this could be helpful for the listeners, 3 self-inquiry questions. And this is a great way to take your mind from the negative default programs. The example would be like, uh-oh, my shoulders I got that pain again in my shoulder. It feels terrible. And the mind goes into fight or flight. And then it's like, uh-oh, we better go on Google and search what this could be. And then we see like the worst, you know, self-diagnosis and all the terrible things. And that just like downward negative spiral that feels terrible in your body. So instead, it's like use a 4-8 expansion breath. Do 5 or 10 rounds, slow things down, and then ask these questions. How is this happening for me? And this is an important question because then it's taking us out of any victim mode, which is like, oh, I can't believe this is happening to me. And it's so painful. And so, it's like that victim mentality just prolongs suffering longer than need be. But if we can take responsibility for our experience and ask, how is this happening for me? Then you're turning your mind into, the heat-seeking missile seeking answers to that question. And it might not come instantaneously, but they'll begin to show up. And it's kind of like a Labrador, a dog that's, you're playing fetch with it, you're giving it a task, and it's happy as can be and just like easy to please. The mind is the same way. And when you stop playing fetch or you just let it go to its own devices, it's like digging holes in the backyard and crapping everywhere. And the mind's the same way with the negative default programs, right? So instead, let's
Yep.
give it a very focused, intentional task. And so the second question is, what needs to change? And this can be, something in your lifestyle. So I can give the example of like, people that smoke, right? And they're getting hit with a trigger, very uncomfortable feeling or an experience that's like really bringing up some emotions or pain that makes them want to escape from it. Instead,
Mhm.
use the 4-8 expansion breath, slow things down, and then how is this happening for me? And watch as your mind begins to seek answers for that and what needs to change. And this is an important one because you'll start to recognize, like we know in Chinese medicine, if we're smoking a lot, lungs are associated with grief. So oftentimes, smokers are typically trying not to fully process grief that from the past,
Mm.
right? So it's like an avoidance tactic. So this was the experience for me. I used to smoke a lot of cannabis back in the day, Charles 1.0, and I recognized by using the same self-inquiry and breath technique that, wow, I was avoiding feeling deeper levels of grief for losing my mom early on. And when I allowed myself to finally feel that and let those tears fall, guess what happened? I was able to shift and not have the same magnetism towards that substance. And I didn't need to smoke anymore. It was like so much easier for me to, let go of that addiction, that grasp that it had on me. And so those are the type of things that what needs to change in our life. The answers will come, and then it's about honoring those answers. Okay, this is what I'm overusing or abusing. I need to take space from it, right? And in doing so, the stuff will come up, right? The emotions that are unprocessed, or and allow yourself to feel through that. Just recognize emotions are messengers. This is emotion is energy and energy is information. So there's some information that I'm
Mm.
gain as this moves through me. And then the third question is, what are the lessons to learn and the blessings to earn from this experience? And this is a valuable one because when you set your mind seeking those answers, boy, you start recognizing like how this is all happening for us, even like some of the most profound traumatic experiences, you know, um, it's like we get to rewrite the story when we see that, oh, this is what I'm supposed to learn from this. These are the blessings that have come from that. This is what set me on this path. Like for me with experiencing physical pain, the most painful experience I ever had, put me back on my trajectory to this type of healing work. So what a gift that was. And I see that differently now than when I was in it, and so same thing with losing my mom and developing a good relationship with grief. Like what a beautiful emotion to express how much I cared for somebody, when using them in physical form and letting those tears fall. And so those three questions could be a great start to, getting to a meditative state and asking those questions, giving your mind a task. And as those answers come, then honoring, what wants to change. And that's what I help people with. That's why a lot of people have resolved addictions with this work, because it's just so profound. When you release what's underneath it, and you don't have the same magnetism, the same like cravings for that substance. So that's a game changer, because then you can channel all this energy you're putting into thinking about needing this thing into your visioneering and taking action steps in what you actually want to create in this life as an epic creator. And so that's a key part of the process that I share is visioneering, your North Star. Like, what is it that you ultimately want to create and share and gift to the world to create a legacy? And that gets to be really exciting, because when you do this inner work and you use the inner peace process, it frees up so much energy. And you begin feeling the same energy that creates planets flowing to and through you. And it's too much for one body to contain. So you're like, man, I get to share this, and it might be a book that you've been called to write, or a TED Talk, or, getting on some stages and sharing your message, or doing a YouTube or, Instagram channel, whatever that is for you. That can actually reach and help a lot of people that need your wisdom, your guidance, your inspiration. And inspiration is in spirit, so like we're aligned in spirit, taking action. And that's so much different, than the majority of the population that isn't even clear on what they want, right? So they're
Yeah.
just, going back into Groundhog Day with the same negative programs, and the same patterns keep showing up again and again until it gets so painful that we try something different. And we don't have to hit rock bottom. There's a process and a way through with more ease and grace.
Yeah. Gosh, that's so true. That is so true. And I truly believe that people could be so much more fulfilled if they would focus on healing and getting those things out of their minds and out of their lives, and focus on you know, getting healthy, holistically healthy, mind, body, and soul. Man, you're a wealth of knowledge, Charles. I appreciate you sharing so many things with us today, and I appreciate your work that you're doing. I know that you're making a huge impact in people's lives, and I always love having guests like yourself come on here and share things like that. So thank you for that. And why don't you tell our listeners where they could find you and what you have going on these days, that they
Yeah.
could maybe connect with you?
Yeah. CharlesClay.coach is my website with tons of, giveaways. In fact, a free gift to all the listeners. Go to CharlesClay.coach, scroll to the bottom and subscribe. You instantly get a free guided alignment activation. And this is 22-minute movement, breath work, meditation practice. You can use it for good morning ritual, helping you clear any 3D debris, any stuck energy, any heaviness. And especially in the first three chakras, there's a different breath technique in there for each one, and it just allows you to really regain your full sovereign chi. I call it, like your highest energy. So it's great for a good morning ritual, because you're getting clear on what you want to create, what you want to experience, and then up leveling your energy. So get that free gift at charlesclay.coach. Those that are on Instagram, check out charlesclay.coach, same thing. And I'm happy to connect there. And another gift, while I have space available, I'm offering free 15-minute support calls, so I can meet people where they're at, whatever they're going through. They can share. I hold space on that call, and then we can guide you to the resources that are needed, whether that's working with me or somebody else, or instead of just staying stuck. That was one of
Mhm.
my big lessons too was I'm trying to do so much on my own, like this valiant effort of like the solopreneur, and like I need to get through all my challenges on my own. Well, when you have a family and kids, boy, it's support on a whole nother level. I say it takes a child to raise a village. And so it's like, it's not just about me. So when I need support, it's so important to reach out to those that you feel called, that your intuition calls you to, because there's a lot to gain there. And it improves connections. It's can help you move through things faster. We're all in this together. So feel free to reach out. Just mention podcast at charlesclay.coach on Instagram, and I'll offer that free 15-minute support call while there's space available. And lots of fun and exciting things coming up too. We're doing another group training with the inner peace process coming up, and helping people resolve their addictions and get clear with their purpose and what they want to share in this life for a path of long-term fulfillment. So it's exciting.
I love it. That's awesome. And I will put all of those things as well in the show notes so people can get in contact with you and find you and, tap into those awesome resources as well. So, do you have any final takeaway or final thoughts you want to leave our audience with?
Yeah. This is like speaking to my younger self on that last piece. Would say, if you feel the call intuitively, if you're stuck, you're feeling like you've been in the same struggle over and over, listen to your intuition, reach out to that person that you feel called to. Just make the call, shoot the text, watch what happens. Asking for support is such a valuable skill to have. And I felt like I was like, had training wheels with that. I was terrible at asking for support for so long. So just listen to your intuition, reach out for support when you need it to those people that you intuitively feel called to, and watch how your life will shift. It's a game changer.
Yeah, that's so good. Well, thank you so much, Charles. It's been a pleasure having you here today. And I thank you so much for all your expertise and for your conversation and the time you spent with us today. I really appreciate it.
It's truly an honor. Thank you, Amber. I appreciate you and this platform and all that you're sharing as well. It's a gift.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to Through the Trauma Podcast. If you have found value in this episode or believe in the mission behind what we are doing, please subscribe so that you never miss any future episodes. Also, be sure to check out our transformation project at transformationthroughtraumaproject.com, where we help inspirational stories get heard on a larger scale through multiple platforms. If you know someone who can benefit from this episode, please share it with them. Until next time.